Hey guys, this is Dan from True North Motos. Today we're going to be going over an install of our dual sport kit with turn signals. This is going to be for any bike that comes with headlight and tail light from the factory. Husqvarna, GasGas, KTM, XCW, XCF-W, TE, FE, non-S model, or the EC bikes. Today we're going to be installing on a 2022 KTM 300 XCW. Starting at the components for the front of the bike, this is your multifunction CEV switch. Has a kill switch, horn, off, low, and high. This replaces the factory kill switch so you don't clutter up your bars. This is your adapter for the CEV switch that allows you to bolt the lower turn signal portion onto the handlebar. Adapter hardware, and the lower turn signal portion of the CEV switch. Next we have LED flasher relay. This is going to have to be used when you're running LED signals like these fork wraps here. You have your horn. You have your adapter harness. The way this works, this bolts into your factory headlight plug, brings power up to the switch, comes and gives you a new headlight plug with high, low, auxiliary, and ground. Next piece is your kill switch jumper wire. So this is going to plug in where your factory kill switch did and run up to your CEV switch to this bullet right here. The signals this customer chose are LED fork wrap signals. These have a 3M material on the back and zip tie to attach to your forks, factory KTM turn signal plugs, and then the optional wire for the daytime running light, which we will go over on install. Moving to the middle section of the bike, this is going to connect the front and the rear of your bike. This is your factory OEM KTM turn signal harness off of a 500 EXC. Going to the back, this customer chose to do a Taco Motoco tail tidy. So this will give you running light, brake light, turn signals, and license plate light all in one rear tail light that will replace the factory OEM one. This is going to be the hardware to mount your tail tidy to your stock under fender. This piece is your adapter harness to plug in between your turn signal harness and your tail light. This brings power to the turn signal harness, power down to your rear brake pressure switch, and then a new tail light plug to give you a brake light function on the bike. This is going to be your rear brake pressure switch that threads into the rear master cylinder. And this customer chose to do an enduro plate mount. Cool thing about these mounts, if I can break the magnet, you mount this part to your under fender, and then they have heavy duty magnets that hold this down, so in a crash this will bend up and not snap your plate off. So if you're riding a lot of hard off-road, definitely recommend doing one of these on your bike. Alright. So the first step for installing this kit is you're going to want to remove your headlight mask, airbox cover, gas tank, seat, both rear number plate side panels, and the sub fender. So this is going to be as far as you need to disassemble this bike to start installing the dual sport kit. So first step in this is we're going to remove the factory kill switch, and then after that we're going to route our turn signal harness. So I'm going to start with the kill switch. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver. So right here is your ground bolt. You're going to need to remove this. This is the kill switch wire that needs to be taken out of there. Right there. You're going to want to put this back in. Since the switch is grounded from your headlight plug, you don't need this ground wire anymore. Then you'll trace this other wire out. Put that in your spare parts bin. So next we're going to want to grab our turn signal harness. Alright, so we're going to go over the front of the turn signal harness and let you know what each plug is. This is going to be your flasher relay. In this case we're using an LED flasher relay. Plugs in there. This is the lower turn signal section of the CEV switch. Green is going to be your right turn signal. Red is going to be your left. This is a turn signal indicator that will not be used. We have an optional kit available if you want an indicator light for your turn signals. Trick I always use for these when I'm trying to memorize them later, when I'm hooking up turn signals, red is not right. This is going to plug into the adapter harness to your rear brake pressure switch. And this is going to be your new tail light plug. These will run back along with your tail light wiring to plug into the rear turn signals. Again, red is not right. This is a license plate light that'll not be used. So that'll tuck down in the sub fender like that and you will not see that. So we're going to go ahead and route this harness. First thing you're going to want to do, pop your ECU free. So just pull up. Don't be scared, they'll just pop off. Get all these rubber plugs off. Take this portion of the harness and this portion. We're going to route it down underneath the rear clutch side of the bike, down this hole. So we'll get those down first. Pull that through. So that's about all you need in there. So we're going to leave that there for a second. We're going to start routing the front.
Yep.
So now we're going to route this along the factory harness. Tuck it in here. Depending on the model, you can route it up the left or the right side of the frame. On these XCWs we find it better to route it up the left or the clutch side of the bike. We're just going to start feeding sections of this through. Anytime you're getting twists in the harness, you can just kind of straighten it out as you're going up so it has a nice even spot for it. So we're going to route this up along with your clutch line through that clip right there and up behind your headlight mask. Now if we go to the back of the bike, this stuff is going to get routed to your turn signal plugs behind, down through the slot in the rear fender. Now we're going to be installing the CEV switch on the handlebars. You just want to loosen your perch. Don't have to take it off. And just kind of scoot it back out of the way. A slight lean forward on the top of the switch makes it easier when you have your levers in the down position like that to work with your hands. So I like to take this and make sure the sheathing is slid down onto these wires as far as it can go, like that. And then underneath here, there's a little notch for the wiring to go through. So we're going to get that into there. I'm going to take one of your Phillips bolts, get that in there. Like everything, don't tighten it down all the way until you get both started. Now your switch is installed. You can grab your 8mm again. Alright, now we're going to feed the zip tie through the bottom, like so. Leave that. You're going to pull this top wiring for the top part of the CEV switch through, and the bottom wiring. Hold that, and you're going to feed your zip tie through the top. The rest of the wiring is going to come down and go in the factory clip here. And clip that like that. Now your CEV switch is completely installed. This is the lower section of the CEV switch that you'll get in the kit. This is if you weren't using the turn signal portion of the CEV switch. So your kill switch jumper wire. So this is the wiring from the upper portion of the CEV switch right here. You're going to connect one end there, spin it a little bit, get the cover to go over, pop it in. And take it in between the fork, route this wire down along here, behind, and then this is where we unplugged your factory kill switch. We're going to plug that in. Okay. So on these, we leave some extra length in them. I like to take it and route it back like that. Then you can go ahead and put that back on. And bring this part back through. That back on. Just tuck this wire up wherever is going to work for you guys to get rid of the extra slack. Then we'll take a couple small zip ties. So you like to feed your horn wires down behind this loom. Same thing with your headlight plug adapters. There's a factory spot for this plug right here in the plastic organizer that comes on your bike. So pop one side in. That is now plugged in and in its factory location. Then we're going to take your factory headlight plug, put it right here, plug that in. This is going to be your new headlight plug right here. These are your horn wires. These are going to route down and back here, and we will deal with those later when we install the horn. Next step is going to be mounting your flasher relay. This can be zip tied out of the way. It just depends on the bike and what you're putting it on. We like to take out the throttle side bracket mount here. It's a pretty tight squeeze on this. You'll actually have to thread this in. Once you have it in far enough, kind of put it at an angle. Hold it while you snug up the bolt. Next step, we are going to take your turn signal harness that you ran earlier. We're going to plug some stuff in. So this is your relay. Put that up in there. This is the lower section of your CEV switch. And this is the upper section of your CEV switch. Take this spade connector off your factory push-pull switch, which you will retain. Like that. That gives you a little bit more room to tuck this in and right there, like so. Now you can take the spade connector and slide it back on. Push-pull switch. Everything else up here is going to go on when your headlight mask goes on with your turn signals.
Go ahead.
So now we're going to install the turn signals. This kit, we're going to be using the fork wrap turn signals. These have the option of a daytime running light, which is this very small gauge red wire. The way to install the daytime running light is you're going to need to strip back about just over 1/4 inch, 5/16 of an inch of the sheathing. This is very small. I actually just use my teeth, kind of crude, but peel back, you got your wire. Gonna take your other signal, do the same thing. You're going to take this wire, grab the end of it, spin it, get all the strands together, and then fold it in half, leaving it just like that. Okay. Again, grab the top of the wire, spin. Didn't quite get on that one. Get it tight like that. We're going to want to bend it in half again. Just like that. This is for the optional daytime running light on your fork wrap turn signals. That's all this applies to. The release is a tab in this slot right here. You're going to take your pick or your tool, slide it in there, compress the tab down, and pull the wire out of the back. So go right to the end of this sheathing, snip that off. Sorry if I hit your camera. Good. Take your strippers. This is 20 gauge wire. So grab that, leave your wire exposed. This is the tool that we use for crimping. If you want to get the correct tool, you can also use just a standard set of crimpers. So where it gets a little bit tricky, but you're going to want to line up all of these wires and hold them. Slide that in. Make sure the sheathing goes in a little bit. You're going to give your crimp. I'm going to go to the middle setting and give a final crimp. Now we're going to take this, we're going to put it back in here. So rotate it. If you look at the back of this plug, you can see where the clip for the pin goes into it. Maybe. There we go. You'll hear a click. Now it's on there. I like to take a small zip tie, feed it through. Leave a little bit of slack in them. And lightly zip tie them on there. Make sure to clean up the fork legs where the 3M tape is going to go. Peel back .3M sticker. Make sure this is on the inside. You want the wire on the inside. The way I do these, might be hard to see in this, but where the factory line is from the groove machining on your fork to smooth, I like to put them at the bottom of that and then push it till the wire almost touches on your fender and get it started. Following that line, we're going to come around and we're going to start the zip tie. Squeeze both sides, get your zip tie tight, and you can kind of adjust it to get your gap correct. I'll repeat it, do the same thing on the other side. The reason for this, if you get your suspension done or anything, and you have these clean, you can release the zip tie, pull this off, and reuse the 3M so you can take your forks in to get serviced, or your suspension revalve. So if you leave a little bit, you can release the zip tie and reuse it. The headlight's going to sit right in here, so the goal is to get most of the stuff up and out of the way. You can zip tie and organize what works best for you on your bike when you're installing it. But just remember, like I said earlier, red is not right. So this wire, if we trace up, is your right signal. I'm going to plug it into the green one. Come up over the top, same thing. We're going to plug in the red one, like so. This guy, not being used, just route it and get it out of the way for right now. Alright, so next what we're going to do while we have this under fender off is we're going to install our tail tidy with the adapter kit and also the enduro plate. So first we're going to use a 6mm, remove your OEM tail light. Next, this is a 7/32 drill bit. Doesn't have to be the exact size, but you just want it big enough to get the bolts for the enduro plate through. I'll flip this over. If you look close, there's already marks. So we're going to be drilling this guy, this one, and this one. Now that that's drilled, take your enduro plate, undo the magnet. You'll need 3 of the 4 supplied bolts. Alright. Put that on there. Get our washer on. Like with everything, don't tighten these up until you get everything started. 3mm Allen. And then 8mm nut. This does bend down. All you really want to do is make sure that you are capturing the nylock and not bending this plate and forming it over this hub fender. Now, oh, they give you a sweet extra sticker too if you need it. Now you have your enduro plate installed. We're going to move on to the tail tidy. Grabbing the adapter kit, depends on what model you have, what adapter kit you will get. This is very small hardware. The size of these nuts, it's 5.5 millimeters. That's what you're gonna do. Put the adapters in, like so. So usually labeled top. If it's not labeled, the part that protrudes more on the lens is going to be the top. I know right now that this looks like this sticks out quite a bit on just plastic spacers, but I've been running this setup for 100+ hours, and since it's tucked so well under the fender, you never even get to a point where you could think about breaking those. So you can see those are through. We're going to take this micro hardware, put your small washers on. And start nut on each side. Now we got them started. 5.5 millimeter wrench. Start tightening with your Phillips. Stop when you get to that point, and then just hold the Phillips. Snug until you hit the nylock. Okay. Now you have your tail tidy and your Enduro plate mounted into your fender. You'll take it over and get it installed on the bike. So now we're getting ready to install our sub fender after installing the Enduro plate and the tail tidy. These are the turn signal connectors off of the turn signal harness. This is the license plate one that you are not going to be using. So what I like to do is fold that back up under here. We're going to take and put this wiring in the channel. And you want to tuck turn signal connectors in so they have just enough room to sit down in this hole right here. So again, red is not right. These are labeled L and R. So green is going to go to your right. L is going to go to the red. Tuck those into there. Now you're going to take your tail light wiring, run it around the same channel. There's a small clip that holds your wiring right here. So get it all nice and neat in there, like so. Hold it. Run your tail light wiring plug up and through the fender. Pull it up and out of the way. This is going to require a 6 and an 8 millimeter to reinstall your sub fender. Start with your plastic screws. So getting your wiring all tucked in here. To the channel. Making sure you're clear right here where it slides onto the post. Hold that up. Always like to start with the clutch side of the bike since the wiring is right there. Remember, these are plastic screws. Get them where they seat and just snug them. Don't go crazy. These are Loctited. So grab yourself Some blue, medium strength Loctite. Dot on each one. These can be a pain to align. If you see, right here, it might be kind of hard to see. There's a cone washer. Might be better on this side. This cone washer right in here fits up in this groove. Make sure your wiring's all tucked out of the way before you start this. I like to look from the top, make sure you're lined up, and then put pressure on the black adapter or the black subfender. Get it top up in there. Next things that we're going to install are going to be your rear brake pressure switch and the rear brake pressure switch adapter that also gives power to your turn signal harness. So it'll be very important, the series that we install these plugs on the other side of the bike in this install. Tools you'll need for this part are a 12 and a 14 millimeter. First thing we're going to do, the 12, break factory banjo bolt loose. Okay, copper washer stayed on top right there. Take this banjo bolt out. We're going to reuse these copper washers. Always like to make sure they go in the same orientation that they were. So we're going to slide that onto there. Now run it through your brake line. Make sure when you're threading this in, you're letting the wire spin as well. So you're not putting tension of these things coiling up to allow a wire to break. Okay, now that's snug. Now trick here, this plug fits through a 14 millimeter just perfectly. Get this down here, 12 points a lot easier on these. Get it ready. Now what you want to do so you don't have to re-bleed your brakes is we're going to give a little pressure to the rear brake until you start to see a little bit of fluid come out like that, and then snug it up. This will get rid of any air gap. Make it so you don't have to re-bleed your brakes. And then hold your brake line and give it a final tighten. Use some brake clean up the brake fluid on your pressure switch there. Remember how we left this all loose in here? This is your turn signal harness. This is a factory taillight plug on your bike. You're going to take the female side of this adapter harness, plug it into your factory taillight, take the male side, plug that into the turn signal harness. This is now bringing power to your whole turn signal system, the switch, everything else. And then your taillight plug, factory or the tail tidy one, it's going to come in and plug into the other male plug on your turn signal harness. If you don't get this orientation right, you will not have any turn signals and you won't have power to that whole harness. Now we're going to take this rear brake pressure switch plug, we're going to feed it up and through right here, and it's going to run underneath the ECU, which is still loose here, and down. We'll go to the other part of the bike on the other side. We're running underneath the ECU. I don't know why this bike has this like this, but this plug is meant to be sitting in there. We're going to take that to the side of it, go down in this little channel right here. You're going to come up from the side over here, run this behind your frame, right there, plug it in, and tuck it back behind your oil tank. We're going to hold this wire in this groove behind the captured nut on your frame. We're going to put a zip tie right there, and then what that is doing is keeping it away from your exhaust. That way you're not heating up and burning through on your rear brake pressure switch. So I like to zip tie it so it's not hanging down in the way of your air filter, but I like to leave stuff pretty loose so you're not putting strain on wires. All of this is going to be hidden and covered up by your rear number plate when you reinstall it on the bike. So as long as you have room to get your air filter on and off and the wires aren't strained anywhere, just get it up and out of the way, you're good to go. Alright, so everything's wired, tidy, kit is installed on the bike. We're going to go ahead and start the reassembly of the bike. So getting your ECU back on, get the plugs lined back up, start with the fronts, make sure they're poking through a little bit like that, then get your rears in. Pull up by pushing down on the ECU. Okay, we're good. Last part of the kit to install is going to be the horn. You're going to grab the bracket, it's going to be straight, just give it a slight bend. These are pretty thin, so it's easy to bend them. The other thing that we're going to have to do, if you notice, around this side of the bike, connections for the horn are on the wrong side. So you can take an 8mm, hold that, break it free, spin this just like that, hold the bracket, snug it back down. Now using stock bolt, usually it's best on the bikes to go into the second hole right here. This is the throttle side upper radiator shroud bolt. Before we're too tight, you can take the connections and slide them on your horn. Make sure your harness back here is routed so you're not going to hit your pinch bolts. I like to tuck it up underneath the other harness running down the frame. Now that's like that. You can snug down your horn. Once it's snug, you can see there's a little tension here. You can just give the horn bracket another bend up, relieve some of that. You're good to go. Alright, checking out the back. You got your brake light from the rear brake. Got your right signal, left signal. Going up to the front, we have off, low, high, daytime running lights, left and right, and your horn.